Welcome inside episode 501 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan in the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. And deep breath, Sens fans. It's been a busy stretch, 10 games in 16 days, but they went out in style.
Absolutely, and Chabot gets his Sens Central bump, 2 goals and an assist, Ross.
Oh, unbelievable. We're going to look into who stepped up during this crucial time where they were without their number one goalie, number one defenseman, top goal scorer, top point getter, and the Belleville Sens had a big time win last night over the Syracuse Crunch. We'll get into all that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
For Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Wednesday, February 23rd in Pilsy. Oh boy, it got hairy in the third period, but the Senators beat the Minnesota Wild 4-3.
Yeah, it was an absolutely great game. Just like the first game, these two teams met, Ross. But the Senators, they come out on top this time in regulation, might I add. And yeah, you got it. There's so many positives to look at this game, but it all starts and stops with Thomas Chabot coming back from injury, his 300th NHL game. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got the clip pulled up of him with the bike helmet and goggles. Of course, there was no other option. It had to be Chabot. 2 goals and an assist. What an absolute beauty.
Find someone that looks at you the way Eric Brandstrom looks at Thomas Chabot. But in all seriousness, an unbelievable performance from Shabby. And we're not taking credit for it, but the amount of tweets that come in giving credit to the Sens Central bump, we absolutely love to see it. You can keep firing those in at Sens Central. The postcast was unbelievable last night. We went very long. It was a feature movie length pretty much.
An hour and a half.
Well, the reason for it, people were asking for us to do kind of a live Q&A to celebrate our 500th episode. And when the vibes are that good, after a win, Pilsy, the Ottawa Senators are 16-1-1. When leading after 2 periods. And the irony is that because when they've lost games, especially in November, the third period, they collapse, that record, 16-1-1, yet they have one of the worst goal differentials in the third period.
Yeah, somehow they managed to hold on. And hey, hashtag goalie friendly show. We got to give it up for the goaltenders. Last night, Forsberg, I thought he played a great game. Those goals that went in, like, they're great shots that come off bad turnovers, right? Like the Fiala one, not a great turnover. They make a good passing play. A guy like Kevin Fiala, he's going to rip that past you more often than not. And then Spurgeon and Merrill, they just walk right down Main Street and rip him past Forsberg. Not much he can do there. So I thought he played a good game, and he definitely kept the Sens in this game because there was times where they were getting outshot heavily.
Yes, the second period was the most notable time there where the Senators really just took the foot off the gas. Would you say that? Or do you think it was more credit to Minnesota for regrouping after what was a pretty poor first period for them?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the latter option there, Ross, because Minnesota came out a little bit flat. Thomas Chabot and Brady Tkachuk opened the scoring in the first period, leading 2-0. And then I think they got things going in the second period in the Sens. When you have so many injuries, you're not able to compete with a team that really pushes you over the top. And they didn't have to do much. They just had to hold on. Like that 2-0 lead was so crucial. And it's nice, Ross, to finally see them get one on the power play. A bit of an unorthodox power play goal, but we'll take it.
A spin and a shot from basically the side of the net, halfway between the boards and the crease. But hey, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And for Brady Tkachuk, it's his 17th goal of the year. And for the Ottawa Senators, it's a crucial goal on the power play. Their first power play goal in their last 4 games. The last one was against St. Louis. Pilsy, if we go back to when they scored their second last power play goal, you got to go all the way back to the game against the Edmonton Oilers, the 3-2 overtime win where Tim Stützle went top shelf short side. That's how long ago it was. January 31st. The power play has gone, it went before then. It was 1 for 23. So to get that power play goal to go up 2-0 in the first period, it can't be understated how important that was. And would you look at that? Thomas Chabot gets a power play assist on that goal as well. Back on the first unit that's still missing some key guys, but certainly came to play last night. They had 4 attempts, so still only 25%, but hey, better than the 0% that the Wild power play went 0 for 3. We should mention, and we do reference the injuries, and it would be crazy not to, but the Wild had a last-minute injury to one of their best players, their second leading scorer, Matt Zuccarello, who we praised. I felt like yesterday was a big-time praising of the Minnesota Wild. So for Ottawa to then go out and not only beat them, but there were times in that game, right? You're up 2-0, you're feeling good. Then the other team battles back, ties it up at 2. Then you go ahead again, you give up the lead again. This was just a battle game, and it would have been easy. 10th game in 16 days to fold the tent in the third period. 7,000 people in the crowd, and that capacity restriction will be lifted on March 1st. So coming up here soon, and the Senators are about to embark on quite a road trip coming up here after the game on Saturday night. They'll be out of town until March 10th when they host the Seattle Kraken, but it would have been easy for them to just kind of fold the tent against a real good team. But they pushed, and they were rewarded late in the third period.
Yeah, and that's what this team's going to have to do, right? Like Thomas Chabot kind of said it before the game, like, we're going to need some greasy ones. And that Tkachuk goal, I would say, was a greasy one.
How about the game winner?
That Timmy goal was also greasy. Like, that was a classic Ottawa Senators goal. Like, the puck was just playing Plinko the entire time in the offensive zone, going off skates and sticks. Ends up on Timmy's stick, and he just snaps it home. And hey, while I'm talking about Timmy Ross, how about 100% in the face-off dot for Tim Stützle? Now,
that was brought to you by face-off expert Brandon Pillar.
Yeah, you got it. So 100%. Sure, he only took 3 face-offs, but 3 for 3 is pretty damn good.
And 2 for 2 against Ryan Hartman, the number 1 center. But you mentioned before the game, Minnesota Wild not necessarily known as being the best face-off team in the league. So the Senators did their part. It was pretty even, 51% for Ottawa, leading in the face-off dot. The Wild outshot Ottawa 43-34, and a big reason was that them more than doubling the Sens in shots in the second period, 19-8. So that Tim Stützle goal. So the Senators scored in the last 4 minutes of the first and second period, and then they score with just under 6 minutes remaining in the third, the eventual game winner. How often are the momentum goals going the other way? For the Senators to finish all 3 periods, scoring the final goal of the frame, that just adds up over time. And I mean, it's beneficial at the bottom line here when they end up getting the 2 points off the last one. But both the first and second period, ending it off and going to the locker room feeling good, knowing that you just put your team up on top. I mean, it can't be understated how important that is for the confidence of this group and being able to run the lines. Everyone up front in forwards played double digits last night. Kaslik got back to his winning ways in the faceoff circle, 63% for him. And being able to roll the lines like that, I mean, you saw it pay off in the third period.
And how about DJ Smith's praise of Mark Kaslik, saying he's the strongest guy in the organization? A 22-year-old that's just getting NHL experience now. And I mean, it makes sense. He's a big dude. He said if you saw him in his street clothes, you could tell right away that he's a strong guy. And that's why he's able to dominate in the faceoff circle at such a young age. So you love seeing Mark Kaslik be able to do that. And this was a great Senators win. Like, that's why the vibes were so high in the postcast, which also we should mention, Ross. We did go long in the postcast, but that's because it was our most popular postcast ever. Like, over 100 people in there the whole time. The chat there was like 500 chat replies and comments. So that was absolutely electric. We were there for a good time and a long time.
And before we move on from faceoffs, Nick Paul does it all. 12 for 18. He took the most faceoffs by a mile. The next most was 10 for Brady Tkachuk, taking 10 draws, by the way. But with Nick Paul, 12 for 18 in the circle. So clearly adding on and giving the team some extra possession, which is crucial against a team that has players like Kevin Fiala and Kirill Kaprizov.
Can we talk about Kevin Fiala before we move on from this game? Because
for sure,
man, I was really warming up to the idea of the Sens trading for him before the game, and now like I'm zoning in on that. Like, I think he would be one of the best targets in the league to go for because he's projected to get 70 points here. He's good for 20 goals in most of his seasons, 40 points. He's someone that I think would fit so well with Tim Stützle on the wing there. And he played the most ice time of any forwards for the Minnesota Wild, 22 minutes, and he had 8 shots. and a goal and an assist. So I think if you're Kevin Fiala and you're trying to showcase yourself in front of Pierre Dorion, what better way to do it than come out and have a dominant night in Ottawa so Dorion doesn't have to travel to Winnipeg?
a pretty impressive game for him, no doubt. His goal, his shot is lethal, no doubt. But also, we had Seth Tupal on from Locked On Wild in the postcast, and I agree with him. Like, they're not trading him at the deadline. This would be an off-season type trade, and would you really even move him? He's got this chemistry developing with super rookie.
They can't afford to not move him, unfortunately.
I mean, you got Matt Dumba right there, too, who I think would also be a good fit on the Senators. But he's been out with injury. So with Pierre Dorion running around scouting the Wild, it wouldn't make much sense to be scouting Matt Dumba since he's not been in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, I really think the key piece here for the offseason is finding a sniper for that second line. Sure, adding a defenseman would be nice, but I've got a lot of faith in the guys coming up the pipeline. Maybe they won't be ready to take on those responsibilities next year in the NHL. I'm talking about Lassie and JVD, but the idea that the Senators need to go all out and find that right shot defenseman for Chabot, I'm not that aggressive on anymore. I think they may have a guy in the system, but you want to time it out with when the Sens are contending, and hopefully that can happen.
I mean, you could also see it as, hey, maybe you go out and get a Dumba if you can move Nikita Zaitsev in a separate deal. Definitely. Then you're starting to cook. And then you have the money available, right? Zaitsev's at 4.5, Dumba's at $6 million for the next couple seasons. Great defense with two rocket of a shot as well. So, hey, we're talking about Kevin Fiala, such a great goal scorer. Yes. Guess what? Tied with Brady Tkachuk in goals this season with 17. So don't undersell the captain of the Ottawa Senators, who got on the score sheet last night. It was a -3 in a 4-3 win. But still, the goal is without it, they don't win the game at the end of it in a 1-goal win. So that's just kind of an interesting, odd stat. And again, shows you how plus minus is kind of a stat. 5 shots on goal for Brady Tkachuk, whereas you mentioned it, Kevin Fiala led this game with 8 shots on goal. The Senators now 15, 12, and 4 in the postcast era since December 1st. And if you take out that December 1st loss to Vancouver, that's 15, 11, and 4 since December 2nd. Certainly right on the cusp of whether or not it'd be a playoff team, but that all went down the drain with a 1-10-1 November. But during this recent stretch since the All-Star break, where it's been 10 games in 16 days, who's been the most impressive players on the Ottawa Senators? We're going to get into that, and we're also going to check in on practice lines today. Could Colin White be even closer to making his return in the lineup? And the Belleville Senators with Kevin Mandolese in goal and a guy off the streets playing backup. They get the win against the Syracuse Crunch. All that and more coming up right after a note from our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. And we know this is the time of year where people have given up on their New Year's resolutions. But this year, do it differently because of Built Bar. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. Whoa, they're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy cinnamon churro, chocolate marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to all be your new favorites. It's impossible to pick just one, but we know with Built Bars, they're all 100% covered in chocolate, 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these. They're better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal. High fiber, low carb. There's a song in there somewhere. Hey, at Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. It's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Pillsy. So the Ottawa Senators get a big regulation victory over the Minnesota Wild. 4-3 the final score. If you want to get more in-depth on last night's game, you can tune in to the postcast, available wherever you download your podcast. And if you're a little wary that it's an hour and a half, well, the second half was all Q&A basically, but we took the first 20, 25 minutes and dug deep into this game. The vibes were at an all-time high. And when you're the Ottawa Senators, yes, playoffs are out of the picture, but when you look at the standings, it is nice to see a few teams below you, isn't it, Pills?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when, Ross, we were at a point where the NHL adding extra teams just made it possible for the Sens to do worse, right? Like you're like 30th, that's the worst they can do. Crap, now they can be 31st. 32, now you can be 32nd. But we don't have to worry about that anymore because the Sens are all the way up there at 25th.
I know. And just a point behind the New York Islanders, too, a team that made the conference final in back-to-back years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Islanders have 4 games in hand. But that to say, the Senators now 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. And all those 10 games have been in a 16-game sample size. So, Pilsy, if I were to ask you who you think led the team in scoring since the All-Star break, who would you say it is?
Well, again, sportsmanship, hand up. I know the answer.
What?
And it's Connor Brown. And Connor Brown just does this in such a quiet manner. Like I feel like something I've really noticed about Connor Brown lately is it's underrated how good he is at carrying the puck into the offensive zone and then being patient with it. Like he doesn't carry it in and say, okay, I'm in. We don't have to worry about offsides. I'll just chip it in and see what happens. He holds onto it. He lets his teammates get in position. He often does the one-armed, like carried around while holding off a defender on the other side of him. And he does a good job of allowing everybody to get set up and causing the defenders to have to switch, to have to move around with him. So it can't be understated how valuable Connor Brown is to this team. And for him to play with the broken jaw, even though he's got the big piece on to protect him, is a pretty big deal too, because this team couldn't really afford to not have him try to play through that. So definitely big stick taps to Connor Brown.
We just pulled up, if you are watching on YouTube, the leading scorers since the trade deadline. These are all 20 Senators who have at least 1 point. What else jumps out to you from this? For me, Thomas Chabot with 4 points in 6 games. Obviously, he missed 4 of them. That's huge. Connor Brown not only putting up points, but being a +5. And look at the average time on ice for Connor Brown. Averaging almost 22 minutes a game. That is unreal. I don't think fans in Ottawa or in the league really appreciate how good of a player Connor Brown is. Like, he just makes everything click here, and he's doing it probably a little bit ahead of where he was meant to, because number 19 would be taking these extra first power play reps had Connor Brown been in his normal spot. And he's doing such a damn good job, man. You got to give him credit for it.
Oh, yeah, and we'll give him credit on this show, absolutely. If you're asking what sticks out to me next, it's got to be Nick Holden. I mean, 6 points in his last 10 games, and we know that he was an offensive defenseman, or at least more of an offensive defenseman in his early days, but he had transitioned to being a shutdown style guy, and he's still able to find ways to get points, and 2 goals in there as well. And you mentioned the +5 for Connor Brown, a +5 for Nick Holden as well, playing with Nikita Zaitsev recently too. So he deserves stick taps too.
Yeah, agree with that. Eric Branstrom averaging over 19 minutes a game. Alex Formenton probably coming a little back down to earth, although he had that sick move last night where he came curling out of his own zone, went outside in on Jonas Brodin, and then almost scored. He did draw a penalty, though, on that play.
As he usually does. Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely, we want to see a little more from Formenton here, but I think there's just been other guys that have been popping off. Like you look at Adam Gaudette, he's been getting a big opportunities playing on that top line with Brady and Timmy. And you know what? We say what you want, but Chris Tierney, 5 points in the last 10 games. Like he does it extra quietly. We talked about Connor Brown quietly doing that. Chris Tierney, he's not making a sound putting up those points, but this is great timing for him to heat up right near the trade deadline.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully other teams are staring at that. Pillsy, the goaltending has been unbelievable as well since the All-Star break. Do you know that only 2 goalies in the National Hockey League have a better save percentage than Anton Forsberg in their last 6 games? Like that in itself is an incredible statistic.
Who is it? Markstrom and Husso?
Jake Ottinger is the other one.
Oh, yeah. Ottinger's coming into his own now. Yep.
Yeah, 945 save percentage for him. 1 shutout involved there. So if you're looking at goalies, and Darcy Kemper's tied with him, and Darcy Kemper has 2 shutouts in his 5 games.
Yeah.
So that just shows you Anton Forsberg. Here's a stat that you'd see on like TSN Stat Center. You know how they have like all these different variables that go in. So Anton Forsberg leads all goalies in save percentage after the All-Star break among goalies who do not have a shutout. Boom. How's that?
There you go.
Cherry picked if I've ever seen one before, but it's ahead of guys like Thatcher Demko, like Connor Hellebuck, like Freddie Anderson,
like
Billy
the two
Husso.
goalies I mentioned. Yeah.
Like these are all great tendies. No, Markstrom's number one. Mark's got a 953.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
He's been ridiculous all year. He's also 6-0. Like the Flames have won 9 straight, 12 of 14. Like they're on a whole different world.
Yes.
So that to say, the Ottawa Senators are clearly getting great goaltending. I actually want to pull up, where do you think they're ranked in terms of team save percentage? And more importantly, team goals against average since the All-Star break?
Got to be top 10, even higher, maybe even top 5.
3.
Yeah.
Only the New York Rangers and the Calgary Flames. Wait, why have the New York Rangers only played 3 games?
Yeah, in Mendes' article, he was saying how it's crazy how the Sens have played 10 games in 16 days. Tampa, New York, and I forget the other team have only played 3 games in that time
Los
span.
Angeles.
LA, yeah, wow.
This is wild. I actually had no idea. They're the only team that's played 10 games in this span.
That's the Sens.
Wow.
The Sens are grinding it out, and you got it. That's the thing. That's why you really have to respect what they're able to do in this compact schedule with all the injuries up against contending teams. Like, this is what's giving Sens fans hope for the future, that even without the top guys, they're able to hang in games and even win a handful of them. So the future is bright.
Yeah, and I mean, there's more games played, so you have more opportunities for wins, but only the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are 6-1, and the Calgary Flames, who are 7-0, have more wins than Ottawa since the deadline. Of course, Ottawa has the most losses of the teams I mentioned, but just being able to battle through and play the way they are, I think that, they deserve some major respect, and I think they're starting to get it. You know who deserves a ton of respect here, too, is DJ Smith for getting these guys to play the right way every single night. And how much fun do they look like they're having? Like, the Sens just had a great photo here. I'm actually going to pull it up here, and credit to at Senators here. But this is just kind of, it's symbolic of what we're talking about right now, of how the Senators are just having so much fun on the ice with each other. Yeah, they're trying to win every game, and when they lose, it's not like, look at the vibes per 60 on this photo, Pilsy. Like, that's got to be 10 out of 10.
That is incredible. So yeah, if you're not watching, we got Chabot, Timmy, Tyler Ennis, Brady, and Connor Brown all together in a line, just laughing their asses off in their nice red practice jerseys. So the boys are buzzing.
They absolutely deserve the rest of this week off, and they're going to get it. Next game is on Saturday.
Up against the Canadians, so they're getting more time off than that.
I know. Well, the Habs are coming around here. Since having,
so.
Do you know what it can't get much worse, but the Habs are 3-1 in their last 4 games. And I want to say that's since the coaching change. I don't remember the exact date of that, but clearly they're coming around. Cole Caulfield's looking like he's remembering how to put the puck in the back of the net. Not worried. It's all good. Don't worry. No, not worried. I'll let you know when I am. But right now, it's new coach bump. Every team gets a new coach bump right away. We'll see how.
Especially when the new coach was like your idol growing up. Like, you're going to put some pep in your step to try to impress him.
Yeah, and obviously, how good does it look for the coach who was coaching Pee Wee last month to go in and get the most important player on the team long term going?
Yep.
So obviously, he's going to do everything he can to make sure Caulfield's production is going up. Not saying that it's unsustainable. Clearly, like, the goal numbers show at every level. So we'll see. But it should be a great matchup between Cole Caulfield, who has 6 goals on the season. Oops, almost said soon. But 5 of those goals in the last 5 games, whereas Tim Stützle has goals in 3 straight games and 4 of his last 5. So that'll be a fun matchup to watch on Saturday. Do you think Colin White will be in the lineup?
It's tough. I think he will be, just because what better time to introduce him into the lineup, right? Like, you're up against the Habs, not trying to double down on it, but that's a weaker team. And then,
you think the Sens will be favorites in that game? They haven't been favorites in a long time.
Definitely they'll be favorites. And then, Ross, after they play the Habs on Saturday, you get a couple days off. Then you're on a nice road trip through Florida, Arizona, and Vegas. So I think if you're going to bring Colin White back, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, fair enough. Colin White in his career against Montreal. Let's look that up. I'm always a hardo for those. 8 points in 18 games for Colin White against the Montreal Canadiens. If he does play, though, do you expect him to be the fourth line center to kind of ease back into the lineup?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wasn't he hurt against Montreal in preseason? I think the injury was against Montreal.
Was it Pezzetta? That Pezzetta guy, or that's who got Crookshank?
That's who got Crookshank.
Yeah, scumbag. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think the perfect spot is start him on that fourth line, get him with Parker Kelly, Austin Watson, and I think, that's a comfortable way to be put into this. You're not going to be expected to put up offensive numbers. You're just going to be expected to forecheck hard, back check hard, and see how it feels to finish your checks and to get hit if you're Colin White.
Yeah, so expect him to start with, let's tell you about that on the other side of the break. First, Pilsy, you've got a word from our favorite sponsors.
Yep, it's betonline.net. And my advice for you guys was to take the over, and the over did hit, just pointing it out real quickly, and you could have cashed in on that if you went to betonline.net. Guys, football might be over, but basketball and hockey are in full steam, and college hoops are coming up. It's that time of year. March is just around the corner. So for all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, they have a lot of fun stuff you can place money on at betonline.net. It's the best spot for all the sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. They got good podcasts when we're talking about them. And it's just not basketball at betonline.net. I didn't know what you said there. It's your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC, Ross. They got it all. Head to the website today or use your mobile device. You can do it right on your phone. So check out all the trends in action, guys. It's the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's betonline.net, where the game starts.
And we've got a quick word from our friends at Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible sometimes for local chain auto parts to stock all the parts you need. Why often endure pointless and seemingly intimidating questions? Leave me alone. I can check it out myself because I have rockauto.com in my pocket. Just pull out your mobile device or go on your desktop and go to rockauto.com. Save time, save money. Two things that are pretty universally loved. Why spend up to 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts? Rock Auto, support a family business. The prices are always reliably low, and they have everything you need. I'm talking brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. If you have a cat like Pilsy, scratches it all up, go get your new carpet at rockauto.com. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solutions to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. All we ask is that you put Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box. That way, they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. All right, Pilsy, first things first, I got to ask, do you think I'm going to get chirped for wearing the same shirt that I wore in the postcast last night?
No, I don't think so at all. As people can tell, you're playing some road games here, not at your home studio, and that's fair game. You can only have so many shirts available.
I brought two because I came over here right after recording yesterday's show, so I was either stuck wearing the one I used for yesterday's episode or the postcast. So I mean, I hung it up. It's all good. Don't give me a hard time. The Sens are coming off a win. Let's keep the good vibes rolling because it wasn't just the Ottawa Senators winning. It was the Belleville Sens. Yeah. But before we get to that, Colin White was taking rotations as fourth line center in today's practice, switching in and out for Mark Kaslick. Let's pull up. Here are the practice lines today. It goes Stützle between Tkachuk and Gaudette, Paul between Sanford and Connor Brown, Tierney between Formanton and Ennis, and then Kelly on left wing with Kaslick and Austin Watson. So that is identical to what we saw in last night's game, albeit we now have Colin White move from injuries out to extra as he was rotating in, as I mentioned, on that fourth line. On defense, Chabot, Zoom, Mete Zaitsev, Brandstrom, Josh Brown, but after practice, associate coach Jack Capuano said Nick Holden was just held out for maintenance. Give the oldest player on the team an extra day off after playing 10 and 16. I think we can all understand that, eh?
Absolutely, yeah. And just some more news from practice, Ross. Scott Sabrin is back on the ice. So everybody, you can now take a deep breath. Everything is going to be okay. Your number one tough guy is on his way back to the Sens.
The investments are officially protected once again.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to protect those investments, guys.
Do you think it was a ricochet shot? DJ Smith, you mentioned it. He said Mark Kastelich is the toughest guy on the team.
I mean, if you're Scott Sabrin and that's literally all you've been brought in to do, you got to take a look at that. Like, he's on the hot seat for sure.
Matt Murray back at practice after welcoming a baby boy into the world on Family Day, as you pointed out, Pilsy. So he rightfully got the day off there. And Anton Forsberg also manning the goal. The guy is an absolute stud. I'm starting to think that the price is going up for Anton Forsberg. Forget a third-round pick. This guy, and I forget who pointed out, but Laurent Brossoit is a very intriguing comparison.
It was Ian Mendes.
It was Ian. Okay. Shocker. Ian's an absolute beauty. So he points out Laurent Brossoit. He signed a 2-year deal at 2.35, Pilsy. Now, the interesting note, and Vegas can play around with signing bonus a lot easier than Ottawa, but his first year, he was making about $900K, and then the second year, he's making $3 million. I wonder if Anton Forsberg might be thinking similarly. This guy's got a big and young family. He knows that long-term, he's got to make as much money as possible in his career. And he is earning every penny of whatever he's going to make. So I think if you're the Senators right now, you have Gus on a one-way contract next year. Murray ain't going anywhere. And the way he's been playing, you don't want him to either. But the other interesting part is, what do you do with Levy next year? Because he could play in the AHL because he was drafted and signed out of Europe.
Yeah, I would keep Levy and juniors for now, especially because you want to give Sogard and Mando their opportunity in Belleville. And yeah, if you're Anton Forsberg, I think that's a deal you should be striving for. 2 years at $2.5 million per year. That's definitely fair.
Is he changing your mind right now, though? Like, is he making you think twice about signing him?
However, in saying that, I don't think the Senators should be the ones to give him that contract. Not because he doesn't deserve it or it wouldn't work out or it's all doom and gloom that Gustafson's making one way like $900K. That's not the whole issue. It's just, with the Senators' luck with extending backups, doesn't work out for them. And they're not in a position yet where I think they need to look at that. And if you're looking for a veteran stopgap guy, you can find him in the offseason for much cheaper than that. So I hope Forsberg gets that. And yeah, like you're saying, Ross, we were targeting a third-round return for him. I wouldn't be surprised if you're looking at more than that now because he's really making a case for himself. Like we were talking about, maybe he's a guy you want as your number 3 for insurance. I think teams could be totally comfortable with him as your backup and feel like they're set.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Sorry, I'm just smiling because you know our boy Chris Traveler, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sent Central citizen. We've compared him before looking like Alfie on the streets.
Yeah.
He is watching Shapovalov right now in the Dubai Championship. And talk about sends abroad. He's rocking the jersey. What an absolute beauty, hey?
Yeah, Chris Traveler, definitely a beauty. And hopefully Shappy has a good game.
Oh, that's
good
unreal.
Match, I should say.
Sends abroad. Good match. All right, Pilsy. The Belleville. Oh, no, we kind of jumped a little over the gun there. If Colin White plays on Saturday, do you expect it to be between Kelly and Watson?
I do, and from the quotes that are coming out from TSN 1200 now and Ian Mendes, it seems all but certain that he is going to play Saturday, so I'm excited to see that, and definitely a great opportunity. Like, what better time than up against division rival, the worst team in the league in Montreal, so I think it's a perfect time to get him back, and it's going to be awesome to have Whitey back. Like, I think we just talked about the vibes being high with the boys laughing in that practice picture. Wait till stand-up comedian Whitey, the rat rink, gets in there. He's going to have the boys laughing for days.
So let's close our eyes and let's imagine a world where Colin White gets the bike helmet on Saturday.
Nice.
Oh my God. What kind of speech you think we're going to get out of that character?
Who knows? Hopefully it's less about what he does in the washroom.
Yeah, I know. What a guy. What an absolute guy. All right. One place where he actually played a few games in Belleville on a rehab stint. Not going to happen this time, as it seems like he'll be ready to jump right into the NHL. Not like Belleville needs the help. They've got now 3 wins in their last 4 games on a busy weekend. Jake Lucchini, somebody needs to get this dude an NHL contract. His agent needs to wake up. 31 points now in the season. Jake Lucchini's hat trick. Woo! Pilsy, Jake Lucchini had 3 goals in 28 games last year. He had 3 goals last night for the Belleville Senators. They win 4-1, and wow, not only did he earn the victory, but how about 36 saves for Kevin Mandolese and only allowing 1 goal?
Absolutely incredible. Like, Ross, the Sens got outshot 37-22. Like, there's just not even close to being right up there with the Syracuse Crunch, which is a team they should be right up there with. But it's the goaltending that gets it done. And then, yeah, Jake Lucchini, what else can you say about the kid? He's tied in points now with Igor Sokolov, and he's tied in goals. Both of them 14 goals, 17 assists for 31 points. So you gotta love to see that. Andrew Agozzino, I mentioned on last podcast, he remains hot. He had 3 assists. So he assisted on all 3 of Lucchini's goals. This guy is absolutely buzzing right now. And that was a massive win for Belleville because they're coming up, Ross. They've got 2 games against the Laval Rocket, which are going to be crucial in deciding if they can sneak into that 4th spot in the division. So if you guys are wondering, like, I'm kind of hemming and hawing about getting into Belleville hockey, well, the Sens don't play on Friday, their next game against Laval. I would highly recommend you tune in for that because that's going to be a big one.
And if you're looking at prospects, how about Cole Reinhardt getting a tuck as well? This guy, I mean, he's known for his speed and his defensive acumen, but hey, getting on the score sheet, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just scrolling down because Murray Pam, who's covering the team for Full Press, he was mentioning, I think that, so there's a bit of a different way they're doing the playoffs in the AHL this year. The top 3 in the division will get a bye. So 4 and 5 play a best of 3.
What?
Yeah. So it's a little bit different this year.
That's huge. That's massive for the Belleville Senators, especially if they're healthy. And like we talked about, Ross, imagine Pinto and Sanderson go down to Belleville for a 3-game series up against the Laval Rocket. Like, don't even bother showing up.
Yeah.
So
the Beldac Sens. Let's go.
Beldac Sens and Bell Vegas. Woo!
Oh yeah, I mean,
that's very interesting. So that really helps this team's chances of getting into the playoffs, which actually I think is fair because with playoffs scrapped the last 2 seasons, why not give teams an extra opportunity to make it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be paying attention to that road series against Laval Friday and Saturday. So Saturday, it's an organizational clash. The Montreal Canadiens are in Ottawa, and the Belleville Sens are in Laval.
You can watch because Belleville and Laval play at 3, so that's a big day.
Ooh, that's a big couch day if I've ever seen one. And if you're looking at the standings right now, Belleville sitting 1 point behind the Laval Rocket, but Laval has 3 games in hand. But the amount of head-to-head games they play, you win your games against Laval, you'll be just fine. Pilsy, any other notes that you want to get to on today's show?
I mean, we pretty much covered it all in the postcast last night, but I don't think I've got anything else here other than it's just great to see Colin White going to be back in action on Saturday. I'm so fired up about that.
Not to kind of end on a sad note, but we do want to give thoughts and prayers to Rodion Amirov, the Toronto Maple Leafs first round pick, who was just diagnosed with a brain tumor. That's very disheartening news. That kid is a real talent. So we wish the best for him. He's hoping to get back and play professional hockey. So let's hope that he can achieve that. And we are cheering for him because it is bigger than hockey for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Ross, that was a guy when we were doing our prospect profiles leading up. I think I had him at 4 stars. Like, I really liked what I saw from him. He had a bright future. So hopefully he can, get this all under wraps and come back healthy, even though he's a prospect for the Leafs. Like, you got to hope the best for this kid because he had a bright future ahead of him for sure. And still does, I should say.
Absolutely. So with that all said, we'll say goodbye for today. Thank you for listening to the Locked On Senators podcast. 501 episodes in the books. I think we're at like 120 on YouTube as well now as the catalog continues to grow. So if you're looking for a great interview to go back to, you can check out our playlist section on YouTube where we've got each and every interview that we've done. And there's a few more big ones on the way. For today, though, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for listening and making Locked On Senators your first listen of the day. Please subscribe wherever you download your podcast. Even on places like Spotify, you can put in a 5-star rating now. That goes a long way for us. So do the subscriptions on YouTube. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.